A few months back, I made a video on the history of NASCAR winners lapping the field, and after regretfully watching this year's ARCA race at Talladega, I was inspired to make a video on the history of a slightly more common type of race domination in NASCAR, leading every lap. In the Cup Series, the last time a winner led every lap of a race was in the year 2000 Duraloop 300 in New Hampshire, when Jeff Burton led all 300 circuits behind the wheel of the Roush Racing number 99 Ford. The race itself had plenty of other unusual circumstances, as apart from an uncomfortable air temperature of 40 degrees, NASCAR had mandated that all cars use restrictor plates. Up until 2019, when NASCAR switched to using tapered spacers, the restrictor plate was a device used at all superspeedway races to limit the car's engine power in order to prevent unsafe speeds. At the wide-open, 2.5-mile-long superspeedways of Daytona and Talladega, this makes sense, but at a flat 1-mile track like New Hampshire, it was certainly an interesting choice. But due to two fatal crashes at the track earlier that season, both of which were due to stuck throttles, NASCAR decided that simply slowing the cars down would be the best immediate solution for the fall races. With the restrictor plates, the Cup cars were going around 10 miles per hour slower than usual, which at a shorter track like New Hampshire made it significantly harder to pass. But I don't bring up those circumstances to write off Burton's achievement whatsoever, as there have been plenty of other times since then where passing has been hard to come by in the Cup Series, most recently, for example, with the Gen 7 cars in Martinsville. But even there in the spring race this year, there was a total of 13 lead changes between 8 different drivers. Surprisingly, the fewest lead changes in the Gen 7 era thus far came in the 2023 Bristol Dirt Race, where Christopher Bell made the fourth and final pass for the lead before dominating the last 100 laps en route to victory. With the addition of stage racing in 2017 adding more opportunity for pit strategy and restart shakeups, it has become increasingly likely that we will never see another driver lead every lap of a race. But really, NASCAR's Premier Series has never been an easy place to dominate. Even prior to stage racing, Jeff Burton still had to survive green flag pit stops, 6 restarts, and quite honestly, just be lucky the second place Bobby Labonte didn't get impatient and just move him out of the way. Not to mention that no matter how hard it was to pass that day, Burton still had to drive a perfect race, or else he would have gotten himself passed. But so far, all I've talked about is the 2000s. Surely there were many more instances of drivers leading flag to flag in the early days of NASCAR when there were fewer cars with winning speed, and sometimes smaller field sizes. And while yes, in the early days of NASCAR, it wasn't too uncommon, but in the modern era of the sport, which is considered to be 1972 and onward, it has only happened 3 times. I've already talked a good bit about the third and most recent flag-to-flag domination by Jeff Burton, but the first 2 were both won by Cale Yarborough. The first time he did it was in the 1973 Southeastern 500 at Bristol, where he not only led all 500 laps, but won by a margin of 2 laps over second-place Richard Petty. The next time he did it was in 1978, also with a victory margin of 2 laps, but that time at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. In both times, there were no unusual circumstances besides Yarborough just having an outrageously fast car and not making any mistakes. So that's really all the flag-to-flag domination history there is for the Cup Series, but what about the lower series and the ARCA Menard series, which I was originally inspired by to make this video? For a long time in ARCA, it was about as uncommon to see a winner lead every lap as it was in the Cup Series, with only 3 instances of it happening after Jeff Burton won the year 2000 Duraloop 300. Those winners included Tim Steele at Berlin in 2001, Ryan Hemphill at Kentucky in 2004, and Kevin Swindell at Chicagoland in 2012. But in the late 2010s, ARCA began to fall off a bit, with its field sizes decreasing and fewer competitive teams sticking around. ARCA also saw significant drops in field sizes due to the COVID pandemic, which, paired with the talented young phenom of Ty Gibbs in 2021, led to an unthinkable amount of domination. In 2021, the eventual champion of Gibbs not only led flag-to-flag at Kansas, but also at Charlotte and Milwaukee, and came within 1 lap of leading them all at both Iowa and Michigan. Gibbs wasn't the only driver to do it that year either, as Landon Lewis also led every lap of the DuQuoin State Fairgrounds race. Following the pandemic and Ty Gibbs moving over to race in NASCAR, the competitive variety of the ARCA Menard series has increased to some degree, as since 2021 there have only been 4 total instances of winners leading every lap, as Sammy Smith did it once, Jesse Love did it twice, and now just a few weeks prior to this recording, Jake Finch did it once. The interesting thing about Finch's achievement, however, is that it came in the very style of track that is known and loved for lead changes. But in the 2024 General Tire 200 at Talladega, Finch and a small pack of his teammates and other fast cars simply pulled away from the rest and stayed single file for the majority of the race. Additionally, there was not a single caution other than the scheduled halfway break, so in the second half of the race, when the lead pack became just a 5-car breakaway, there was not a lot of momentum to be had for the other 4 drivers to try to make a run on Finch. And some of them didn't even care to in the first place, as the second and fourth place finishers of Chris Wright and Gus Dean were both Venturini Motorsports teammates of Finch, and didn't want to risk anything that could cost the team a shot at winning. That left the only other 2 cars in the lead pack of Tanner Gray and Christian Rose, both frustrated and unable to make any moves. Interestingly enough, in 2022, Corey Heim, the same Venturini number 20 car, almost pulled it off before Finch, as he led 74 of the 80 laps at Daytona on his way to the win. So while in ARCA, it's fairly common for superspeedway races to have a similar amount of lead changes as would a 1.5 mile for a short track race, in NASCAR's top 3 divisions, it's anything but. In fact, the last time that happened was in 2003 in the Busch Series with superspeedway legend Dale Earnhardt Jr. That season, Jr. made 3 starts in the Busch Series, all at the superspeedways, and he won all 3 of them in pretty dominant fashion, but none more so than his 3rd win in the Winn-Dixie 250 at Daytona, where he led all 100 laps. The race was pretty clean overall, but still he had to survive 3 restarts and not let anyone get a run to either side of him for the whole race. In the Busch Series, which was later renamed the Nationwide Series and then the Xfinity Series, there have been 6 instances, according to my counting, that a winner has led every lap since the last time it happened in Cup. Coincidentally, the first of these was with the same winner, Jeff Burton, who led all 147 laps in the Spring Darlington race. Another coincidence was that that race was a part of a string of 4 straight races won by 3 different drivers, all with the name Jeff. It was Burton who won at Las Vegas and Darlington, then Jeff Green who won at Bristol, and finally Jeff Purvis who won at Texas. But anyway, the next Busch Series race, led from flag to flag, was the one we already talked about with Dale Jr. at Daytona. And the one after that wasn't until 2011 when Kyle Busch first did it at Phoenix. For longtime viewers of the Xfinity Series, it is probably no surprise that Busch, the all-time series wins leader, comes up on this list not just once, but again at Richmond in 2014. However, between those 2 wins by Busch, there was almost a very shocking addition to the list when in the same fall Richmond race in 2013, Richard Childress Racing's Brian Scott led the first 239 of 250 laps before a heartbreaking defeat to Brad Keselowski in the final laps. For Scott, who was shooting for his first win in the series, it was a string of late race cautions that caused his demise, as the more experienced Keselowski took off much better on a restart with 6 to go and pulled away to the win. And not all stories end with a happy ending, as Scott, who was already in his 4th full-time year in the Nationwide Series, never ended up finding victory lane before his retirement. But regardless, the next driver to pull off the feat was Joey Logano in the 2015 spring race at Bristol. Leading all 300 laps in the same number 22 Penske Ford that Keselowski killed Brian Scott's hopes and dreams in, Logano survived 8 restarts to finish ahead of the then series regular Daniel Suarez by just over a second. The next year in 2016, the ultimate bushwhacker Kyle Busch almost added on 2 more flag-to-flag dominations at both Las Vegas and Indianapolis, but both times it came up short by 1 lap. He still won both races, but at Vegas, Bubba Wallace snuck around to lead 1 lap during green flag pit stops, and at Indianapolis, Brendan Gaughan did the exact same thing. With those 2 races serving as perfect examples of just how hard it is to lead every lap of a NASCAR race, even with the best driver in the series and the fastest car on track, it's really crazy to think that anyone has been able to pull it off. But there was one more time as of this recording that an Xfinity Series race was dominated, and it's the only one I've talked about so far with an asterisk attached, as I'm talking about the 2023 inaugural Chicago Street Course race. After heavy rain and lightning in the area, the race was forced to be made official after just 25 of 55 planned laps. 25 laps that were all led by that year's eventual champion, Cole Custer. But what about the Truck Series? I haven't mentioned it at all yet because, in part due to the general chaotic nature of the series, there's only been 1 instance of a winner leading every lap there since it last happened in Cup. And shockingly, it wasn't the all-time wins leader of Kyle Busch or any other Cup driver for that matter. Rather, it was Timothy Peters in the Red Horse Racing number 17 truck who got it done back in 2012 at Bristol. Finishing less than a second ahead of his teammate Parker Kligerman, Peters put on a clinic that day and made it through 6 restarts, including a green-white checkered without a single mistake. And with that, there's not much left to cover. There were many more flag-to-flag dominations prior to the time it last happened in Cup in each of the Xfinity Truck and ARCA series, but as for the purpose of this video, I will not be delving into those. I'm not too familiar with the drivers and teams of those times, and plus it was not too uncommon in the pre-2000s for winners in those 3 series to lead every lap. And with that said, I am 99% sure there have only been 3 instances of flag-to-flag domination in the modern era of the Cup Series, but if anyone watching realizes that I am missing an Xfinity Truck or ARCA race where that happened in the time since it was last done in Cup, feel free to call me out in the comments and I'll make sure to pin whoever can find those races. Basically, the way I went about finding these races was either looking at the number of lead changes shown on RacingReference.com or by looking at the post-race articles from the time, so a race or two could have definitely slipped under my radar. But that's all for today's video. Thank you all very much for watching, and if you did enjoy it, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like these. Stay tuned for another Were They That Bad episode, and other random videos like this one, as I'm trying my best to upload new content about once every week or so right now. Also in the comments, let me know any other interesting details you all can remember from these races, and which winner you were the most surprised about. For me, it was probably the fact that Jeff Burton did it twice. But yeah, that's all for today's video, so until next time, peace out.